Alrighty, let's begin. I am so excited to introduce my really, really great friend Brandon to the show. Finally, he was literally one of the first people that I would dream about and talk about my podcast with when we first began this whole thing. So I'm so happy to have you on.
So happy to finally make it.
We met like a year and a half ago,
Yeah.
around like last like early 2023. We met
Yeah.
through this community that we're both a part of, and I feel like it was both like such a portal for us because Brandon moved to LA just 3 years ago.
Two.
2 years ago? Oh my
2 years
gosh.
ago.
So this guy literally, like, every time I talk about Brandon, I talk about how, like, you literally have the most, like, rare experience of living in LA for the first time because I feel like I always talk about how LA is a really difficult city to, like, put yourself into and that it takes years to find your people, your community, your work. And I feel like you just kind of dipped in and like have manifested the most incredible year of 2 years that you ever could in Los Angeles. So I think that's the coolest thing ever.
It's truly been a dream.
And I feel like we're gonna talk a lot about that. I really want to talk a lot about your journey, about how you manifested this whole life. And just to begin, I'd love if you could give us just like a little bit of a before and after of like where you were however many years ago to where you are now, just to give that kind of contrast, and then we can kind of dive in a little bit on the story.
Yeah, so like roughly 6 years ago, I started teaching myself social media and marketing. And that kind of that led me on my trajectory to where I am now, like working, doing my dream job in that industry and getting to work in music full time. And yeah, I'm just really grateful for that whole journey that started.
When was the first? I know we've had like little conversations about this, but when was the first time that you had that like little inkling of like I think I want to move to Los Angeles?
So it was actually, I grew up watching like the Fast and Furious shows, the movies. So that was the original start of that. And then about 10 years ago in 2 weeks, I went to this little town in Ohio called Yellow Springs. And it's this little hippie town. You would imagine it would be in California based on now that I've been here. It seems like a little California hippie town. And I went there with two of my best friends, and that kind of started my whole journey of I found the two books that changed my life there, and started just I don't know, started listening to a lot of music that was California inspired, or California based artists, and started watching some different TV shows, and I don't know, it just all kind of everything pointed towards Los Angeles and California, and it always seemed like it was out of reach or like I would never get there, but I always knew in my heart that like I would make it there. Like,
Can you share what books they were?
yeah, so Cosmic Conversations by Stephen Martin.
Oh, yeah, I've heard
It's a physicist. He has a lot of conversations with like leading physicists, spiritual leaders, gurus all around. And then the other book is Be Here Now by Ram Dass, and it's his whole journey.
Oh my gosh, so that was the. Oh yeah, we were just talking about that book the other day.
Yeah,
Wow.
so those books really, that if I can define the day that I like woke up to my conscious spiritual self, and it was the day that I finished Cosmic Conversations and started Be Here Now.
Wow.
And I was just crying in my roommate's bedroom.
That is so magical. What was your life like? Like, did you consider yourself a spiritual person before that, or was it like a big contrast? Was it something that was like more gradual, or was it more of like a okay, now this is like legit, or was it still part of your life beforehand? It just wasn't as embodied.
Definitely big contrast.
Yeah.
Because like I grew up going to church with my mom on Sundays, but I don't know, there was parts of it that I didn't really resonate with, and I always believed in God, but I always believed more on the side of like we're all children of God and we're all like spiritual beings, but I didn't know what spirituality was until I got to college and started reading all those books, and that kind of set me off. Like now I've read about 120 to 150 books, all just like nonfiction, whether it be spirituality or business or science, or like I love quantum physics and learning all about really just all of life.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a very curious person about just how life works in general, like how the earth works, how space is designed, how the internals of our mind is designed, and yeah.
I love that so much. Do you think that reading is some of your favorite like practices to connect in that sense, or do you want to talk a little bit about like different ways that you connect spiritually, or you feel like you can keep yourself like in alignment in that energy? Because I feel like you you feel like you very effortlessly like kind of just like are able to maintain this energy in your world. So I'm just curious about like what your, you know, what your day-to-day practices
Yeah.
kind of look like.
Yeah, I can describe like a concept that I've kind of realized, and then like my day to day
Yeah.
practices and what I've learned. I realized that the waking up process is every single day, every single moment process. It's not just like one day of your life and then all of a sudden you're awake and conscious for the rest of your life. Like no, it's every day, every single moment that you're awake and alive. You're figuring it out, and you can slip right back into old ways of thinking and less conscious ways of existing, and then you can also, you know, just stay in it and tap in. And I feel like the process is, when we're born, we're just a drop of water, and as we like are raised and conditioned by our family and our upbringing and just our surroundings, not just our family but just like our general surroundings when we're kids, we it's like a snowball where it slowly packs on, and then like by the time we're, you know, 17, 18, we're this big snowball.
Yeah.
And the waking up process is realizing that you're a snowball and realizing, oh, all of this extra snow that's packed on is not actually me, or it doesn't, you know, some of it might be, some of it might not be.
Yeah.
And the whole waking up process is just kind of like releasing all of that and going back to just being a droplet. And then from there you can pack on and become your own snowball. And I feel like the last 10 years from the time that I went to the Yellow Springs to now has been the whole process of shedding all of the extra weight and the extra snow and water. And then now the last like year or so has just been me as a droplet and starting to pack on my own water weight and becoming
on your
my
terms.
own snowball. Yeah. And just like really conditioning and creating my life how I want it.
I love that analogy. I think that's really special.
Yeah. So like my day-to-day processes, I will say it's been a long process of just like slowly unraveling. Like I started hot yoga like about 4 years ago. I started meditating back in college when I was reading those books, and it's just been a slow journey that's very magical and amazing. And now getting to live out here and having all these communities that are also in the same wavelengths and trying to do the same things. And I love community. I love coming together over music, and I love coming together for like book clubs and like talking about our favorite books, and just like consciousness in general.
Yeah.
I think that there's some events out there that are all spiritual, and like every aspect of it is like spiritual this, spiritual that, and I feel like that's kind of missing the point of like everything in our lives. Like everything that we could do is inherently spiritual. So if we're trying to be super spiritual, we're kind of missing the mark. Whereas if we're just doing things that are natural and organic to us, then that's like spiritual inherently.
I love that take. That is really, really powerful, because I feel like it's so honestly exhausting, I think, living in Los Angeles, where it's like spirituality and consciousness is just like this like capitalistic, like, I feel like spiritual ego is such a big thing in Los Angeles, and like it's funny how complicated we make this idea of spirituality. And I think that especially in the online space, and especially just like now people are building businesses around it and stuff, it's like I feel like we make it seem like this really unattainable, difficult, painful, transformational thing that you have to like give up your life to, like, you know, step into the new 5D or whatever. And like I think that a lot of times that just kind of like really just pushes people away from it that need it the most. And I feel like for me with my brand, like one of my biggest missions is to be able to make this accessible to people who aren't as woo-woo or esoteric, you know, because it's like it doesn't matter who you are, what your religion is. It's like we're all human and we all can connect, you know, to spirit, because that's what we are. And I think that I really love how you put it, where it's like as long as you're flowing, you're, you know, in your own, you're flowing by yourself of like in alignment with what you want to do. It's like that is spiritual. I think that, like I was saying, it's like we just get so caught up in that snowball of just like shit and bullshit and like lies and beliefs, like get just crowd it so much, you know. But yeah, that's something, just to finish my point, like that's something I've been thinking a lot about, where it's like it happens in an instant, you know. It's like, you know, all these years of work that we've been putting into, it's like it leads you to, for it the shifts to happen in the snap of a finger. You know, it's like, it's not necessarily that it's happened in the snap of the finger, but everything has led you to where you are today, to the point where it's just a shift in frequency and it's just a shift in energy for you to get huge transformation.
Definitely. It really is, like I said, it's not a one moment thing, but it also is a one moment thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you can just shift right now, you
Yeah.
know. I forget, I know Alan Watts talks about it. I think it's Buddha that says it, but like, awakening can take the blink of an eye, or it can take 300 years, or it could take infinite years.
I love
And
that.
it's all based on like what we allow ourselves to experience.
Yeah.
And like you said, that your process with your brand is opening it up to people that aren't necessarily, like, don't consider themselves spiritual,
Yeah.
or just like they haven't found that path yet or whatever. And like, I think the whole process of connection is just allowing people to realize that it's where they are right now. It's not some woo-woo thing. It's not some place they have to go. They don't, we don't have to go meditate in a cave for 5 years and figure out consciousness.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's consciousness is right at the tip of our nose. It's
Yeah.
right in front of us. It's inside of us. It's everywhere. And it's just about tapping into that and realizing, like, oh, it's all spirituality.
Yeah.
It's all, that's kind of what I realized with Be Here Now. When I was reading that, I was just like, it's not some spiritual energy here and all the rest isn't. It's like, no, every single atom in our existence, like in our universe, is conscious. Is like that. I don't know, it's all of life is consciousness. And it's not thinking like, oh, that rock isn't alive but we're alive. And it's like, no, like, we're part of that rock. That rock is part of us. Like, we're all connected to everything. Like, we're alive just as much as the universe and the planets are alive. And it's really crazy.
And like, we are the magic too. I think that there's like the two sides of it, where it's like, I feel like I'm such a grounded like middle between, like, I used to be like ex-atheist, like just so disconnected from this world, and so I have that like more like very analytical, like rational mindset, which I know that you do too. But I also have people in my life who are just extremely on the other end, who literally give all of their power away to candles and like these little spiritual rituals and stuff. And I'm like, girl, like, it works because you are the magic. It's like, I've had friends in my life where it's like, they talk about how like they just got the wrong candle at the witch store and like they're not gonna get the job they want. And I'm like, girl, like, you are the magic, you are the power. And I think that that's something that's also just so powerful as well, where it's like, we are so fucking powerful. It's like, as we are just now. And that's, I think, where those shifts have come from. Those shifts come from truly nothing outside of ourselves, but recognizing that we already have the power. And you have helped me see that a lot. I remember you said something. Can I share the quote about the connection thing?
Yeah.
We were at Coachella together. We went, you, me, and my boyfriend Griffin all went together. It was so lovely, so wholesome, so beautiful. And like, I had been growing so much at that time. I had just been building and launching my first signature course. I was dealing with so much imposter syndrome, and you said something that has stuck with me literally to this day. And it was that, we were both talking about how like we're always searching for, like, to expand our world and our communities, and like finally like have the right things. And that you said literally like realizing that it's like, I don't need any more connections. Like, I am the connection. And that fucking was like such a mind-blowing idea of like, wait a second, like, I have to stop putting everything outside of me on a pedestal, thinking that I need to be good enough or cool enough or powerful enough or worthy enough to be in the right rooms with the right people who are going to pull me forward, and realizing it's like, I have everything right now already. I am the connection. I am that spark that's going to pull all of us forward. And so I don't know if you have any thoughts about that and like how you got to that mindset.
Yeah.
But that's really powerful.
Yeah. I just, like, back to that realization at Coachella, just the last couple years in LA, like, LA is a very aesthetic type of place, and it's about like it can be about like who knows who and who you're connected to and what you can provide for people and the resources you have and everything. And I've been trying to build up, like, my connection base, my resources, my financials, my everything. I've been trying to look better and like feel like I can, basically, like, I'm just trying to earn people's acceptance and like get into people's circles. And when I was at Coachella, we were at Rufus du Sol sunset set. It was incredible, literally one of the best sets of my life. But I just was realizing, I was like, man, all of these metrics that you're trying to build, like it's the people that are meant for you, the people that are going to be in your circle, like they won't care about any of that. That's not what the people that are true for you, that's not what they care about.
Yeah.
They care about you and the energy that you're bringing, and that's it. Like,
Yeah.
period. Everything else is icing on the cake. Sure, it's cool, but like in that moment I was just like, man, I keep trying to make myself look better so I can get more connections and more people that do this and this that I want to do, so I can get into those spaces. And I was like, man, it's not about any of that. You have the power already. You're putting so much power, like so much energy into trying to look in certain, like look certain ways and like be this person that people perceive, when really you could just put all that power into being the connection yourself. And if you really want something to happen, stop waiting for other people to bring it to you, and you create it yourself. And as you start to create it yourself and build towards that life and towards that creation, then those things will start coming in a lot easier as well. And like it is, you know, it is about connections, and it is about like the more resources and connections you have, the more you can do in the world. But it's also like how you're framing your perspective going into it.
Yeah, and I feel like it always comes back to the worthiness of like believing inherently deeply in your own body that you are worthy of the opportunities, and so then you can go and make it. Versus I feel like we're always just like, a lot of the times we always hold ourselves back because it's like we're like, well, we're not there yet, we're not at that point yet, like we need this and this and this and this. And so yeah, that's been a really powerful realization. So I would love to just walk down the path with you, to talk a little bit about how you followed your intuition to get to where you are today. Because I feel like, let me know if I'm wrong, but it feels like you are just so in alignment with where you're going, with where you are in life, where you're now about to move into this new chapter. So we don't have to start all the way from the beginning, but I'd love to even talk about like, that spark 10 years ago in college when you started reading those books, and like, maybe fast forward a couple years when you joined those communities, like what would be, just to start, like those first intuitive nudges that brought you into new space and new identity, and then kind of we can go from there.
So I won't go too far back or too far into how far I'm going back here, but let's start when I was like 6 or 7 years old. I learned about Gandhi, and it was around the time where he was in jail and fasting, and he had like 200,000 people marching for him. And I realized in that moment at such a young age that I wanted to have an impact like that. Like I wanted to sacrifice myself in a way to like create such a positive impact for people, and to make people realize that like they're seen and loved no matter what. And so ever since then, like my intuitive path has come around the time when I got to college and started reading a lot and meditating and connecting with myself. But yeah, I don't know, felt really connected to just like all people. I've never discriminated against anybody. It's just like, you're a person, cool, you're my brother or sister, and that's that. And I don't know, down the line when I got to college, I started reading a lot and meditating and just learning about what the intuition is. And thankfully my mom has always told me to like listen to your gut, and that's really what the intuition is. It's like it's your that gut feeling of like, when you're taking a test, go with that first answer that you thought it was. Even if you analytically figure out that maybe it's a different answer, like most of the time it's not, and it's that first answer that you went with. And that just kind of like, that teaching alone taught me to listen to my gut. And when I started meditating and getting into all of these spiritual practices and just practices in general and ways of life, it just allowed me to tap into my intuition pretty quickly and easily. And definitely wasn't on my path for a long time. Most of my life, like the being on my path is still something that's like newer to me. It's the last like, I don't know, 4 years, 5 years, which is a decent amount of time at this point. It feels pretty familiar, but yeah, just really it was like 6 years ago is when I left a sales job. I moved across the country to Austin, Texas, only for a few months. Just didn't work out with the roommate and the whole situation. But I went out to one event with this little creative collective there, and when I got back to Cincinnati, I was like, I want to find a creative community here. And I know there has to be something. And I started getting out in downtown Cincinnati a lot more and found this group, joined their team and helped them with the first event was just doing literally janitor work. I was cleaning up the floors and helping with handyman shit, whatever I could help with, just because I knew if I was a part of the community, I would connect with a lot more people. I'd feel a lot more comfortable. And at the first event, I met over 100 people, and that was kind of like the start of my journey going into where I'm at now. I got into the music industry, the local industry in Cincinnati, and then that kind of just led me into blooming myself. My whole intention going into that was I want to break out of my shell, and because I grew up so socially awkward and I just didn't know. I don't know, like when I was a younger kid, I had an easy time making friends, but then middle school, I just kind of shelled up and I don't know. I put a lot of walls up, and then the whole process since college, and it's just like I said, with unraveling that snowball, it's just been unraveling all of those walls and the guards that I put up, and that process just kind of led me to hot yoga. Hot yoga was a major transformational thing for me. I found my breath and breath work through yoga. I grew up overweight and didn't really like how I looked and how I felt in my body and everything, and that whole process allowed me to like find myself. And
that was a big transformation too. I forgot about that.
Yeah, so I don't know, it's been a wild journey, and like lots of ups and downs too. It hasn't just been like, oh, I figured it out, I'm good. And it's like, no, you can fall right back into a path, like I mentioned at the beginning. Like you can fall back very quickly. And it's just about reminding yourself and constantly just like staying in tune with your intuition. And then that all led me to now working my dream job out in California and living my dream life and
playing and making music.
Yeah, making music, DJing around at some of my favorite venues pretty quickly in LA, and it's been truly amazing. And I feel like right before this we talked about like it's all about how if you feel worthy and that worthiness. And when I got here, I had never visited California before I moved.
Yeah, that's a great part of the story.
Yeah, I had so many people tell me like, oh, you should go to California, you seem like a California person. But then they're like, don't go until you're ready to move because you're not going to want to come back. So I really took that to heart and felt like my path was to end up in California, and like it was going to be right for me. And I was looking at moving out of Cincinnati. It's just where I'm from and where I grew up my whole life. And looking at any places that were hot because I was just tired of dealing with winter and snow and ice and wind, and it was really bad. So I was looking at Florida, I was looking back at Texas, and then I didn't think LA, it always seemed like such a huge task. Everyone talks about it in there's so much stigma around LA and how expensive it is and how bad the traffic is and how all these things, and I didn't let that deter me. I just kind of leaned into it. And when I was looking at places in Florida and I was looking at the prices, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm going to look at California just to see. And the prices were almost the same. And I'm like, I'm going to go to the place I really want to be. And so I started looking at my dream company to work for, and they had some openings, and I applied, and it was such a crazy, like, roundabout way, and they replied, and I ended up getting the job, and I'm super grateful for that. And that pulling me out here, because it is good that I came out here with a job locked down, but like didn't have much money, I don't know, I had never been here before, packed up whatever could fit in my car, got rid of everything else, and moved across the country. I had never been west of Denver, and ever since that week I spent in Denver at my old college roommate's house, and then making the trek, I stopped through the Grand Canyon, I always wanted to do just like yeah, for sure. Always wanted to do a trip across the country in my 20s, and I got to fulfill that dream and then land in my new home. And when I got here, I've been living with an 80-year-old lady, and I rented the room out from her, and turns out she's my roommate, not just the landlord. And it's been a fun journey in itself, but ever since I got here, it's like every single week I'm reminded, like, I'm supposed to be here. And, like, all these dreams of, it's like 10 years of, I feel like it's been such a successful time for me out here because it was 8 solid years of planning and dreaming and trying to manifest all the things I wanted. And I had a whole bucket list of things I wanted to do when I got here, and I crossed that whole bucket list off in like 6 months.
Yeah.
And then it was from there, honestly, it may be like 8 or 9 months, but like from there, it's all just been a whole new phase of life where I'm like, it's all unknown. It's all, I did everything I wanted to do, and now it's like, okay, well,
What's
now,
next?
yeah, what's next? I get to create everything going forward, and the whole past year of my life has been really, it's like since Joshua Tree last summer, or the beginning of last summer, it's been a whole portal. My whole life has been amazing. It's like every week I'm crossing some major thing off my new bucket list, or like, I don't know. I've been tapped back into like even though it's been 10 years since I was in college and like, or since I started college and met my best friends and got Spotify and started my whole music journey through that. All of that has felt very fresh recently because there's a lot of things that I would dream up or think of or want to happen back then that are now happening and manifesting and creating now.
Yeah.
And it's all just been so effortless,
Yeah.
and so it's felt so normal. I think that's the craziest part is I got out here and it like I'm the life I'm living, like sometimes it genuinely feels like a movie, and I grew up watching a lot of movies and shows, and I always wanted to like live my life as if it was a movie, or like have a biopic one day and all of that. And now it's really crazy living my life and feeling like I'm doing such iconic things all the time. Like it feels like every single weekend sometimes, and but it all feels so normal. It all feels like I'm supposed to be there, like I'm supposed to be doing all of this.
That's how you know you're in the right path.
Exactly. It's really been so amazing. And I'm just grateful like every single day.
I love it. I love hearing it, and I think it's just it's so inspiring, and it's so just like, I mean, you've been working your ass off, but it's fallen so effortlessly. It's like you've been working hard, you know, in your job and like with like making your life happen for you, but it's like the things that have come into your life are like also effortless, you know? Why, and that's why I think that it always comes back to these simple core beliefs and identity and like self-concepts that create our realities. It's like I just want to mention just the power of our beliefs and how much it resonated that in what you were saying, where it's like you had a belief that LA was unattainable, and so you weren't even looking there. You didn't even like open your eyes to start looking at apartments, and then suddenly, you know, by taking action, by, you know, actually moving forward and trying to make a difference in your life, you notice, oh my gosh, like Florida's also kind of expensive, like let me just take a look at Los Angeles. And so it's like, it's so crazy how it sounds so simple, but truly like there's such simple tiny little like belief shifts that we can make in our inner world that just ripple into absolutely everything. And so do you think that there's times in your life right now where you're also kind of, you know, juggling with stepping into that next level of like, all right, like, well, now what are my beliefs about where I am right now? Like, is that something that you consciously think about maybe, or is it something that more is like in the back of your mind subconsciously that is just a byproduct?
It's very conscious right now.
Good.
And especially with I forget which, I think it's like Life Path, or there's some thing that's basically, it's like 9-year cycles. And when I found that out and I read like all through the cycles and found out which cycle I was on, I knew which cycle I was on before learning the math behind however they, you know, figure it out. And the year before this past year was like the final cycle, like a final year of that 9-year cycle. And then now I'm on the new precipice of creating my whole, like the next 9 years, and 9 or 10 years, whatever it is. And I will say, to like go back to like what you said with it being effortless, but I'm also working hard, that I would like to clarify that it's not effortless in the, you know, like I am working my ass off. And that has allowed, like, if you're not going to create your dream life without actually putting in the action and the work to help create it. And it's been a lot of hard work, and a lot of even like the spiritual side of things, or like the less actionable side of things. Like, it's still a lot of hard work. It's still like I've kind of fallen out of my meditative practice in the last few years, and I'm getting back into that. I've fallen off of yoga, kind of getting back into that, and yeah, it's just been a whole journey.
Yeah. I love to talk about like timelines because I think that I see so clearly like timelines are such a people think of it as such like a woo woo like out there idea and concept when for me it is a very grounded, tangible, rational way that I see the world where it's like we had three different timelines. You had staying in Cincinnati, you had going to Tampa, you had moving to LA, and you know which timeline that you chose. And like right now, like even the sense of the timelines of you know, like both of us stepping into just our self worth and like our power. I'm just curious like how tangible that is in your own mind if you think of things like that or yeah, what are your thoughts on timelines? You know, like I'm just genuinely curious to pick your brain on like how you perceive that.
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot of intuition of like, does this like sitting with each timeline? Because I could have stayed in Cincinnati, which also was starting to get pretty expensive, and then I could have lived in Florida. I could have moved back to Texas, but when I sat with myself, I'm like, it's time to level up and go to the place that you really want to go to.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since I've been here, it's like I've figured it out, and I've realized like through my process here of like I was figuring it out in Cincinnati, and I've been figuring it out here in the same way that like we're not gonna allow ourselves to just like starve and not live in the best ways that we can and like live out our dreams. And when you level up and get to that next phase, you're gonna level up in a lot of different ways,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to figure things out in the ways that you didn't think were possible or whatever. Like you will figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's been the biggest thing for me.
Just trusting them, having the
Yeah,
belief.
for sure. And like where I'm at on my new timeline is like I even wrote this in my journal a few weeks ago, is like you've got the makings of a man, but like you're still acting immaturely in certain ways, and you're still kind of like being a kid in some ways, and it's time to step into that next phase and believe you're worthy and know that you're powerful and like worthy enough of having everything that you want. And now I'm in a phase of, okay, well, I lived in survival for a long time, and then I've now like even still living in slightly survival mode, I've found a way of living in abundance out here and letting go of all the fears and the worries of like, well, if I don't make it, or if I spend all my money, yada yada. And like, of course, I'm budgeting a lot better now, and I'm like a lot more intentional with my money and just everything that I'm doing out here, just because there is that slight fear of like, well, it is pretty expensive out here, and like if something happened with the job or whatever, that like you do have to figure it out. But where I'm at now is just like, you will figure it out, and just like trust that you're gonna figure it out regardless of what happens, and trust that like when you're taking these steps into this next phase, that like you're allowed to have abundance, you're allowed to have success. And it's funny because I've spent so many years, like even when I was a kid, my dad would have me reading success books and like the 7 Habits of Highly Successful Teens, and then like the adult version, and just so much books, like so many books on success. And even with that, and knowing and like reaching the mild level of success that I've reached with like my job and with music and just my life in general, like I still struggle with feeling worthy and feeling like always feel like I have to earn it, which part of me doesn't want to let go of, because it keeps me
fuel,
it keeps me fueled up, and it keeps me pushing. And I always feel like I'm not enough, or I'm not doing enough, or oh well, yeah, I just succeeded on this, but it's time for the next level, and like it's time to get going and level up. And I'm always all about leveling up, and part of the process of like being conscious and leaning into your truth is like sometimes it's not about leveling up. Sometimes it's just about
celebrate and take a breath.
Exactly, and just like enjoying. And like this summer I've really leaned into the enjoying life part. And it's funny how like feelings like joy and happiness and just like doing fun things and having fun can be so hard to accept and allow into your space. And I'm always thinking like, oh well, I haven't reached this level of success yet, so I can't enjoy this phase. And now I'm like, that's such a
So silly, yeah.
so silly. It's literally
It's
so
a
silly.
human survival thing, and like I think that's really the key of life is remembering like we're there already. You know, it's like
For sure.
everything else is the cherry on top, and like you said, like maintaining, still using that part of you that to fuel you, and like accepting it and loving it, but then always having that balance. You know. So
Embracing and celebrating the success that you have instead of just like immediately moving the goalposts.
The never ending goalposts.
Because like I'm going to continue moving my goalposts, but that doesn't mean that I'm not allowed to enjoy some of it and take some moments in that process to just celebrate and live.
I always visualize it like those things where they have like the carrot and the horse that's just like there, and like horse is just walking from like infinitely, like endlessly to that carrot that's never there, you know.
For sure. You're allowed to have the carrot every once in a while.
Literally. Take a breath, go to the river, relax.
Yeah, exactly.
So I would love to just end this episode talking about like what energy you're here to embody for the next year. Like what does this next chapter represent to you, and like what energy do you want to really embody as you step into it?
So I've been really leaning into I was raised majority by my mom and my dad as well, but mainly on the weekends. And he had jobs that he was working. My mom always had jobs that she always had like multiple jobs as well. And anyway, needless to say, like spent a lot of time around being raised by my grandmas on all sides, and my aunts and my mom, and love my dad, but it wasn't full time, so I grew up in a lot of feminine ways, and I'm at a point now where like there's a lot of talk about toxic masculinity and like how, I don't know, just like there's a lot of bad views of masculinity, and where my process has led me to where I'm at now is like it's time to lean into the masculine side of things, and like the healthy, natural, masculine, supportive leader, masculine side of things. So that's where I'm at now of my process of like just stepping up and leading and stopping feeling like I need other, more connections or more resources or whatever, and just like fully embodying the leader in my life and like being a leader for my direct community and my direct friend groups, and just knowing when leadership is needed and also when to take a step back and lean into the feminine, because it's not about getting rid of one or one's wrong or whatever.
Balance,
like it's
dance.
It's all about that dance and that balance between, and that masculine energy is what I'm just like, it's time to become a man and like actually become a man and not
fully step into that divine masculine.
Exactly. And stop running around like a kid, kind of.
Let's all make time for play.
Still, play is not lost when you become a man.
So I love to end every episode with asking my guest if they have one word that they want to use to represent the next year of their life. I know it's like at any point of the year, but I love to imagine just at any point, that first year. You take a moment to think about it.
Yeah, let me take a deep breath and... I think lead is the word that has been persisting to me for the last, like, this whole year, basically, this last 6 months is all about, like, I've been singing a lot more, and I've realized when I'm singing, I can follow and feel confident in following. But if everybody else goes silent, then I get so bottled up in fear and worry of like, oh, do I sound bad and yada yada. And like, for some reason, the singing journey has been a great like metaphor for my journey and like my masculinity, which is really such a weird correlation.
I love that.
It's all lead and leading is where I'm at.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
I'm glad we could finally make it happen after a year of talking about it. I've always wanted to be on a podcast.
This is really special. And
I've always wanted to create my own podcast too, and
you should.
It's coming.
I'll be cheering you on for that one. But yeah, I'm really grateful. I know it feels so special because you were a big part of just like a person I had to talk to, and I was dreaming about all this up, and you were there since episode 1. And so here we are, a year into this, and yeah.
So happy to be on season 2.
Yes, thank you for
Keep tuning in.
Mwah. Talk to you later.
See ya.
Bye.